Which Side Podcast is a proud member of the Which Side Media Collective.
This episode is brought to you by Charlotte Malrich. Charlotte said that we could shout out whatever we want, but this week we wanted to shout out Charlotte herself.
We just want to thank you so much for sticking with us through good and bad. A lot of people probably don't know that she is an author herself. She's a huge-time activist, and you really should check out her work. You can check out her work by going to csmalrich.com. It's in the show notes. And she has an upcoming short story that's going to be released in the next couple weeks, actually, April 22nd.
Yeah, it's in a book called Mother's Revenge from Scary Dairy Press, and the short story is It Wants to Be a Swamp.
So go check out Charlotte's stuff. And Charlotte, thank you so much for your continued support.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
This is episode
225.
That's right, it's 225. Who do we have this week, Jordan?
We have Jonathan Levy, Zero Waste Guy.
But first,
Our side. This week we wanted to talk about a new project that we're involved with called Channel Zero Network. Here's a quick promo for it.
Channel Zero!
Channel Zero is a newly formed podcast network of several anarchist and anti-authoritarian podcasts across so-called North America. Our goal is to create an ever-growing platform to expand the reach of anarchist analysis into a larger and more public audience. Currently, we are made up of The Final Straw, the Crime Think Ex-Worker podcast, Submedia, The Soulcast, Which Side Podcast, Resonance, an anarchist audio distro, and the IGD Cast. Our goals with this network are several-fold. First, we aim to support each other and expand the audience of all of our podcasts with a common website and platform where each of our shows can easily be found. This website has already been created and will feature all the latest podcasts in the network, give information about all of the shows, and also have a section entitled Ask an Anarchist, which will allow new people the opportunity to ask show host questions. Second, we have created a 24/7 stream where you can hear all your favorite shows in an ever-evolving range of anarchist audio. Walking to work and want to listen to a podcast? We got you. Staffing at the local info shop, radical bookstore, or community space? Just press play. Heading out for a long road trip to confront some fascists, help support a picket, or stop a pipeline? We know just the thing. Instead of turning on Pandora or Spotify, listen to us. Lastly, to make this a reality, we're also going to be making an easy-to-use Channel Zero phone app. We live in an age where the power of the mainstream media, historically aligned with neoliberalism and the Democratic Party, is falling. The gap that it is leaving is being filled by a host of other medias. While revolutionary anarchist media is growing in size, at the same time, so are our enemies on the far right. Creating engaging and exciting shows and podcasts is part of winning this battle. And in order to do that, we need exciting, beautiful, and engaging platforms, projects, and content. We're asking for your help in getting this off the ground.
Channel Zero!
I'm super excited about this project.
And what's great about it is that we're still all running individually. We're all have our own autonomy. And so we'll still have our same websites. We'll still have our same RSS feeds. And it's just a place that everything can come together, and there will be a 24/7 podcast player on it. And I think that'll be great for when you just want to put something on when you're making signs or driving down to a demonstration to punch some fascists.
Or when you're stuck in your cubicle like me, 9 to 5, and you want something to listen to that'll stimulate your brain. It's the perfect thing for you. Right now, we're in the middle of doing a fundraiser for it. We already achieved our goal in about 24 hours, nonetheless. It's fucking amazing. But the more money we get, the more we can actually put into making people aware of the content. And that's kind of where we're at now. So if you have a second,
channelzeronetwork.com.
It'll take you to the Indiegogo page. If you can kick down a couple bucks or more, be sweet as hell. And thank you so much. I'm just super excited about it.
Yeah, me too.
We don't like doing these ads, but we also have to pay for the podcast out of our pocket. So what better way to help us than to become a member of Which Side Podcast? If you head on over to whichsidepodcast.com and click on the members tab, you can become either a monthly or a yearly member and get all the awesome benefits that come with that, which include a shirt of your choice, a patch and bandana, listener shout-outs, and all the archived and new members-only bonus content that we release. Plus, you get a discount at the Witchside Collective store.
If you're looking for other ways to help the podcast, you can always go rate and review us on your favorite podcast aggregator. That helps us out a ton. iTunes is the most popular. Go give us some stars. Give us a little review.
Become our friends on social media. Hit that like button, that follow button, and just be our friends.
And we got a goddamn phone number that has the word anarchy in it for you. It's 424-ANARCHY.
That's 424-262-7249.
Just so you can cuss on the show.
Yeah. Call that number and say fuck shit damn.
So when you say zero waste, what are you actually talking about?
To me, zero waste is really a lifestyle. It's this idea that you don't want to create any unnecessary waste, recycling, anything. You really want to just only consume what you need. But from like a business standpoint or an ethical standpoint, it's this idea that zero waste is this principle where you don't want to bury anything, like put it in a landfill. You don't want to incinerate or burn any material. And you don't want any toxic discharge into the environment. That could be like dirty water going into a river or something along those lines. And it's kind of like a guiding principle for your life or your business that will help you kind of reduce your impact.
So how did you get involved in this aspect?
I was working, so 2012, I was working for a big American retailer in the warehouse and management. I was supervising the mechanics that were in charge of keeping the conveyor belts and the forklifts and the pallet jacks all running. And I was just, I'd always grown up feeling like I was an environmentalist. I'm from the Bay Area. I always felt like I was environmentally aware. I recycled. I was mindful. And working in that environment, I was just constantly seeing myself inundated with just really low quality disposable consumer goods that are meant to be used one time. They're meant to break quickly. I was literally seeing them go along the conveyor belts, go on the forklifts day in and day out. And it just really was wearing on me. Like, why am I spending all this time working for this big corporation to optimize their distribution of low quality junk, I guess we'll say.
So how do we take all of this learning that you have right now, which is really geared towards the market, right, and give that to the consumer? How do consumer make more educated choices?
Oh my goodness. I have discussions and debates with people on this all the time. It's really a two-pronged approach, which is why I started my blog. I was working with businesses, and I realized that businesses are comprised of individuals, there's people. And I really needed to work with businesses and with individuals, because when the individuals get it, when they understand that recycling isn't good enough, when they understand that being inefficient and being wasteful is not good, it helps them influence their employers. Or if they're the business owner themselves, it helps them make better decisions. So when it comes to working with individuals, I always tell people that if you follow those tenets, like everyone's seen that recycle logo, reduce, reuse, recycle. It's pretty boring stuff. It's very basic. Reduce always comes first, because it's this idea that I don't necessarily know what the most environmentally friendly product is. All I know is that because there's so many variables. It's like you manufacture something in one state where there's less environmental regulations, it makes more pollution, but you manufacture in another state and they have all these it's very confusing. It's very convoluted in a lot of senses. So I always tell people that if you don't need it, just don't consume it. And when you do need to buy something, focus on buying something that's high quality, as local as possible, as durable as possible. It's going to last a long time, and really just slow down the consumption.
So have you studied much into whether or not it is more environmentally friendly to recycle? Because I know that there's certain products that it does create more greenhouse gases to recycle than it does to produce new.
Yeah, I can't speak to any specific items, but this kind of goes back to that consumption thing, this idea that if you're constantly using disposable single-use items, yes, that water bottle might be recycled. It's probably going to be downcycled into a lower quality material. But if you think about something that's intended to be used one time, it was probably manufactured overseas where they have very little, if any, environmental regulations, very little, if any, like labor standards. And there's really a lot of indirect consequences of participating in that system. So that's why I, as zero waste person, will say you should not be recycling, because you really should not be purchasing or consuming anything that cannot be used over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. I like that you brought up the term downcycle, because I don't think a lot of people realize that a lot of products there is a valuable life. There's only a life cycle that how many times you can recycle things. Like when you recycle paper, every single time you recycle it, the fibers get smaller and smaller, which means they're less strong, and it's a lower quality every single time.
Yeah, absolutely. You should never buy toilet paper that's made from virgin paper. Like, it should always be from recycled paper, because once you use it that one time, it's gone. It's done. There's no recycling. But yeah, a lot of people think that we made this mistake in our society, I think, by telling people that recycling is good enough. The number one pushback I receive from anybody about why they can't do a better job, they go, "Oh, I recycle. You should see my blue bin," which in most places is a recycle bin. My recycle bin is full to the brim, but I barely make any trash. And I always say to them, "Well, what happens to your recycle bin once it leaves your house? Where does that material go? What happens to it?" And they go, "I don't know."
So did you start this journey before you were vegan, or did that kind of come about because of this?
Okay, so it's a great question. And maybe the middle of 2015. So I'd been working in waste and recycling for a few years at that point, and I had learned. Actually, it wasn't until 2015 that I really learned about what the zero waste movement was. And I was saying, I'm working with these businesses to try and be more sustainable, but I'm not really taking these steps in my own life. So I started reducing packaging. And I know that I pretty much got all the packaging out of my house. And I realized there's this one thing that comes in styrofoam with cellophane around it that is like the worst material. Styrofoam and cellophane are like the two worst materials. They're not recyclable. They're horrible, right? And of course it was meat. And I was looking at that. I was reading more and more about like the impact that livestock, animal agriculture has on the environment. And I was like kind of seeing the writing on the wall that if I really want to be the person that I am, who lives and breathes, like, this is who I am. I can't turn it off. Like, when work's over, all of a sudden I'm just like going out and getting steaks and being wasteful and driving around a Maserati or something. I'm like, this is me. And I took a long, hard look, and I was like, yeah, I can't call myself a person who's environmentalist living a zero waste lifestyle and still eat meat. So that's the long-winded response on that one.
That's really interesting. I've never heard anyone coming to veganism based on the packaging. Well,
packaging was kind of one thing, right? It was like, okay, how do I reduce packaging in my life? Well, meat always comes in a package. I mean, sure, you could go to like a specialty butcher and maybe they will put your meat directly into your container, but it's like at that point you're just like splitting hairs. But really I came to veganism was for the environmental impact was my number one reason or priority on that.
I love that was the catalyst, though. That's what started the avalanche.
Packaging, yes. Yeah, packaging was the avalanche. Yes.
So, have you had any challenges in maintaining your lifestyle?
Oh my gosh, it's hard for many reasons. I think when I talk to most vegans, they say that they did it for the protection of animals, mm-hmm. And I don't want to make it sound like I don't care about animals, but since my focus was for the environment first, I don't have that knee-jerk like disgust. Like, I think we treat animals very poorly, but it's not, for some reason it doesn't quite twist that knife in me, like I know it does for probably a majority of vegans. So there's times when like, well, first of all, when you say you're going, I don't know what it was like for you guys, but when I said I was going vegan, people were laughing at me. They're making fun of me. They're trying to force me to like, hey, are you sure you don't want this meat? Or you know, stuff like that. And it wasn't until I really drew the line in the sand and was like, no, I'm doing this. And I went home for Thanksgiving and I'm like, I'm not eating the turkey. I'm not doing that. Right. And that's when it took taking kind of those bold steps to make sure people took me seriously. But over time, it's really hard wanting to go out to dinner with friends or going to events. I mean, I went to an event for an environmental organization that I don't need a name, where they say they're an environmental organization and they didn't have any vegan friendly options. And it was just like, the hard thing for me is that we live in a meat focused, a meat centric, animal centric environment. So it is very difficult. And, you know, it's just hard to maintain it when I feel like every time I go, I'm being like almost made to feel like I have an eating disorder because I don't have meat. I'm not eating meat, or I'm not eating something at an event because the only options are meat.
I want you to name names now. I'm curious.
Oh, well, it drives me crazy to no end that I had this revelation from various reasons. Watching like Cowspiracy was one of the things that like kind of helped, because they just focused on numbers.
Yeah.
And I was like, how is it possible that all the environmental organizations in this country, Sierra Club, Greenpeace, the National Research Defense Council, Surfrider, even the Environmental Protection Agency, not a single one of them mentions reducing the amount of meat that you consume as a way to fight climate change. And so I don't need to call out any one organization because none of them advocate for that. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a big opportunity, a missed opportunity.
It just really shocks me that there wasn't even a option, right? Like, I get not being completely vegan. Even though I would disagree with it, I get it. But not one fucking option? Come on.
Yeah. So yeah, I was in Austin. Now you're like, everyone's going to Google like environmental group in Austin or something right now. I went to it was an event. It was in Austin, which is very progressive part of the country
and very
progressive city, very vegan friendly. And I was like looking around, and I went right up to the executive director of this organization. And I said, hey, we're like promoting, being sustainable, living zero waste, but I'm not seeing any like vegan options. There's hardly any even vegetarian options. And they're like, oh, well, we wanted to showcase all the barbecue that Texas is known for. And I was like blown away that there was this complete lack of like, even of the executive director of this organization, of like what actually causes climate change. What is like the number one root cause of climate change, which is livestock. So
it's like an ocean conservation thing, serving fish. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Yeah. So, well, I think fortunately, Rainforest Action Network, after Cowspiracy came out, has started focusing a lot on veganism and its role in environmental change.
I didn't realize that, but I'll have to check that out.
I mean, I guess I don't know too much about it, but give props where props are due, right?
Yeah.
So what's been the most like satisfying or gratifying aspect of being vegan since you've made that change?
I thought that I was a good cook, and I thought I was open to trying anything. Like, I was open to eating anything. And then when I went vegan, I realized actually my focus was very narrow. I was open to eating anything that I was familiar with. And when you just like literally, like, I didn't transition. I just went cold turkey, for lack of a better, analogy, right? I literally just ripped the Band-Aid off. And all of a sudden there was this big gaping hole in my plate, which is like, what do I do to replace this protein that I'm missing out on? And I just really, I've always loved to cook, but once I went vegan, I just literally out of necessity just dramatically expanded what I eat. I learned how to cook with all these different things. I learned how to use nuts to create all these different textures and flavors. I learned about all these grains and legumes that I was just not really eating on a regular basis. And I actually tell people now that I am as long as it's vegan friendly, I am probably the most flexible eater out there. And they think I'm crazy. They think it's like an oxymoron, but it's amazing how many meat eaters will not eat a vegan meal because they think that it's not filling or not comprehensive enough, or they'll be hungry later.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think I got that too. I definitely feel the same way, that people said I was a picky eater, but it's like I'm only picky in the way that I won't eat things that aren't vegan.
Yeah.
yeah, it does make me feel like because I don't have, like, some people are, they have, like, they're alcoholics or they have, like, eating disorders, and and I almost feel like a lot of times my perception is like people look at me as like I have an eating disorder because I'm not willing to eat some food, or they think I'm picky or I'm obsessing about it and I should just go with the flow or something. And it's definitely a challenging thing to overcome. So
what are a couple extremely common things the average person can do to minimize their waste?
Well, there's like two things. There's direct waste, and then there would be the indirect waste. So from a direct standpoint, I would say look at anything that you use one time or two times, and then you throw it in the trash or you throw it in the recycle bin. Look for a way to replace it with something that can be reused. So if you go to get coffee every day, why don't you try bringing your own reusable coffee mug or a tumbler or something? If you find yourself buying bottled water a lot, consider bringing a water bottle with you. We're getting more and more places that are accepting of just refilling things for you and doing that sort of thing. Those are the easiest things. If you want to start being aware right now, just do that. From an indirect standpoint, if you are try to be more mindful of what happens to your things after they're gone. Like, where are they going? Are they going to, thinking about, if I do throw that water bottle away, is it actually going to be recycled into another water bottle? No, it's not. It's might be recycled into like some tchotchke piece of junk that is not intended, that will never be recycled. Really, it's just one step removed. And then also, if you're still wanting to really have an environmental impact and you eat meat on a regular basis, I would say start considering reducing that, just because cows, livestock, they eat a lot of food, a lot of grain, they drink a lot of water, and they fart and burp a lot. So much so that they're the largest contributor of greenhouse gas emissions, like any one thing, behind the US and China. Mm-hmm.
So given the current political climate here in the United States, how can we make sure that things like the EPA doesn't just vanish? Like, it almost seems like it might, right? This is a difficult question to answer. I think that it's important to, this sounds kind of cheesy, but literally be the change you want to see in the world. A lot of conservative politicians are really struggling right now because, like, I think you guys are in Utah, right? And there was that, that town hall meeting where people were screaming at the guy to do his job over and over and over again. And I think that a lot of politicians, they might have their party affiliations and other things, but really they answer to the people. And taking local action has an impact. There's a reason why the Affordable Care Act hasn't been repealed yet. It's because too many Republicans use it, like they use it just like the Democrats use it. Everyone uses it. And if you really want to have an impact, you just have to take local change. You have to kind of take these little steps, be in touch with your local politics, with your representatives. I mean, they work for us, right? Or they're supposed to, at least. It doesn't always feel that way. But really, it's just taking those steps. It's being conscious, being mindful of what you're consuming, what your politicians are doing. We just have to stay on top of them to make sure that we keep them honest, because they'll ultimately do what they want. But if they know that every single time they go against what we believe in, what our values are, that we're going to go be at their doorstep, that we're going to be sending them letters, we're going to be calling their phone, we're going to be sending them so many faxes that they unplug the machine, that will have an impact. So when you talk about working locally like that, what kind of programs should people be actually advocating for to their local governments?
Well, at a most basic level, like vote, right? Like I just had a vote for my city council member, and it was like I felt like it was bad versus worst in a lot of respects. But I could just say like, oh well, it's like two bad candidates. But I had to pick who I thought would represent me better or not quite as poorly. And I hope he doesn't listen to this. The guy who won. No, he probably won't. Conservative, old money, lives in a big house, nice neighborhood. Probably doesn't listen. No, just kidding.
Podcast.
yeah, right. I think that it's voting. It's being just engaged on the local level. Like we're talking. They're looking at expanding like the Metro bike share program into my neighborhood, and that's great. And it wouldn't happen if it wasn't for people saying, "Hey, we need more dedicated bike lanes. We need more of these things. We need more of these things for citizens. We need to get people out of cars. We need to get people walking down streets." If it wasn't for people actively engaging on the local level, those things wouldn't happen. I mean, I have a friend of mine down in San Diego who joined this nonprofit like Bike SD or something, and he said it used to just be like a guy going to city council meetings. And then he created this organization, and all of a sudden he started adding hundreds and hundreds and thousands of members. And then when he would go to the city council meetings, it wasn't just one person, it was thousands of people that he was speaking on their behalf. And, supporting your local organizations, because really on the day to day, the cities and towns and areas we live in, that's what we experience. That's what impacts us the most, because that's our everyday life. Most of us stay in one area a majority of our time.
From a zero waste perspective, how or is there any programs, I should say, that kind of address the food desert issue? Because it feels like in those areas, everything is going to be packaged. They don't have the means of getting it.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but there's this concept that we call the triple bottom line. And it's this idea that your business or your organization should be mindful that there's an even balance. If you picture like a Venn diagram with people, planet, and profit, and where the three of them overlap, would be the example of a sustainable business. And I see this all the time where we say, yeah, everything's, we're bringing all this food into this food desert. Like South LA is I think it's the largest food desert in the country, or one of the largest food deserts. Mm-hmm. in the country. And, they'll bring stuff that's like low quality food or meat or stuff that's packaged in styrofoam. And they go, well, these people are hungry, so we're bringing them food. That should be good enough. And the triple bottom line kind of rejects that idea. It says that we really need to find that balance. Yes, we have to take care of people. We have to feed hungry people. But if we're doing it at the expense of something else, if we're doing it at the expense of serving low quality meat, or at the expense of using all this disposable packaging that's not going to be recycled, and that's problematic. And this is just a really complex issue, but I think making sure people are kind of mindful that everything is interconnected, it helps kind of guide us.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. What are some ways that people can find out more about you and learn about your project?
The best way to find me is go to zerowasteguy.com or hit me up on Instagram at zerowasteguy.
Whichside Podcast is hosted and produced by Jordan Halliday and Jeremy Parkin of the Whichside Media Collective, with web design by Jordan Halliday and sound design by Jeremy Parkin. Booking by Mari Halliday. Go to whichsidecollective.org to check out the other shows in the collective. As always,
this is Brandon Mullins calling from Crossville, Tennessee. Fuck, shit, damn.